My dog barks, some. Mentally you picture my dog, but I have not told you the type of dog which I have. Perhaps you might even picture Toto, from The Wizard of Oz. But I can tell you, my dog is always with me. Arf. Now wild at heart and weird on top. The first the Nerdom with Mike and Tom.
Hey, hey, Tom, how are you doing?
Hey, hey, Mike. How are we? Yeah, it's and is your dog like Toto from the Wizard of Oz?
Yeah, so the audience might be somewhat confused here, but I'm Mike, and with me is my host here, co-host Tom, and this is our weekly show, the first, the last, the Nerdom, and
Mhm.
we're that weird quote. It very much is will foreshadow what we're about to get into this week.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, we're looking at Wild at Heart by David Lynch, and yeah, being thrown off center and being a little unstable there is sort of David Lynch's hallmark. So, but before we get into all that, let's talk about ourselves for a minute.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Here, my computer here is just being a slideshow here. But anyway, the party moves on. But yeah, as Tom was saying, hey, we are coming back at you again this week. We enjoyed our nerding out. Last time we hung out here online.
mhm,
That was great. We would really appreciate it if you could like, comment, subscribe. We would really
mhm.
appreciate it if you could subscribe. We are trying to get up to a number of subscribers here to maybe break 100. We'll see. Probably not, but that's okay. But you know what? Maybe we'll get a good drive going here at the end of the year. Yeah, this week, before we get into the main event here, the first 5 minutes of a video is critical. So they say your first few minutes.
Mhm.
We also want to say thank you so much to the folks out there that do show up every week, that like our content, and we appreciate it. Be even better if we could hear from you. But
Mhm.
aside from that, we're about ready to get into it here. Yeah, I really enjoyed our last few. They've been
Mhm.
I picked up a couple new favorites from our last
Mhm.
show. Of course, you can't see it, but our live one. There, I might as well throw it up there while I
Mhm.
talk about it, where we talk
Mhm.
about Ahsoka, a little video game activity for myself as well,
Mhm.
and we cover some light things in the news a little bit, but not so
Mhm.
much on that. Well, unless we feel like we'll pretty much cover something. If we want to talk about it, then we'll bring it up. But with that being
Mhm.
said, I think we can get into the main event here. Yeah,
Mhm.
so Wild at Heart. So give me some background on this because I never ran into this prior to this. I definitely have my favorite Nick Cage movies that are like only I would like, or a very small, the small amount of people. It's
Right.
kind of like those movies that you hate to say that you like. I guess I don't know. I don't really care. I don't really feel that. I don't know about you, but I like what I like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know where it falls within the bounds of normality, and or at least the normal casuals. Yeah, so Wild. So how in the world did you get across this? Now, the last Nick Cage movie that we did was very
Mandy.
Mandy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. That was fun.
Mhm.
That was much
Yeah.
more modern. Had a however you like, whatever you say about the movie, the cinematography and the acting and the things were all in sync, and they were pretty good, pretty darn good, of quality anyway. My point. But
Mhm.
this is a very young
Mhm.
Nicolas Cage, 1990, Wild at Heart. I
Mhm.
am still processing it, and at this point, I've
Yeah.
had the opportunity to see it a couple times actually, from the
Yeah.
first from the because we're delayed about a week or so, but we had a
Mhm.
life happen, and so here we are. But anyway, so I don't know, I
Yeah.
love Nick
The
Cage, and I'll just let it go from there. If you give us some history and background on this
Yeah,
This movie's wild.
Yeah, his career is sort of a kaleidoscope. Everybody has a Nick Cage movie they like. Even your grandma has a Nick Cage movie that she likes. But yeah, so this is probably not grandma's favorite, Wild at Heart. And, yeah, it's the reason I picked it was we're getting on to the end of summer, and it was a very hot summer. Whenever I think hot summer, I think of two movies: Angel Heart, which we watched last time,
Yes, we did.
and then Wild at Heart.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah,
You
and
did.
Wild at Heart. So we're gonna do it last week, which was the end of summer officially. So,
Right.
but of course we got a little off schedule, which is okay. But yeah, it's
For sure.
so yeah, it's sort of a summer movie for me. Interesting thing is, at one point in both movies, they go to New Orleans, and also they share an actor, Pruitt Taylor Vince, who plays Buddy in this movie, a very small role, and he had a small role in the Angel Heart. He played one of the detectives that show up at Mickey Rourke's hotel room. And but yeah, so yeah, it's sort of a summer movie.
Right.
I'm familiar with Wild at Heart because I'm I was a big David Lynch fan starting with the Twin Peaks show. And the first season came out, first 8 episodes. And then the second, which was a huge hit. Everybody loved Twin Peaks that first season.
Right.
They loved the little quirkiness of it. And then the second season, it was on ABC, and ABC kind of shuffled it around to various time slots.
Right.
Plus, famously, David Lynch left halfway through the second season to film this movie, Wild at Heart, and then came back at the tail end of Twin Peaks to finish it out. But yeah, so the quality levels it would kind of drop dramatically for Twin Peaks during that time. But we were gifted with Wild at Heart, so yeah, I was a Twin Peaks fan through the whole run of it. So when this came out, I was still riding that huge Twin Peaks high. And yeah, it definitely didn't disappoint in the weird factor for David Lynch. Although I would almost say that this is probably one of his more accessible films. It meets you halfway. If you'll meet this movie halfway, you're gonna have a good time. But you have to be open for it. It doesn't try to kind of cuddle you in and say,
No,
hey,
it
come
doesn't.
on in.
No.
It's very abrasive.
it very much you're a participant in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And David Lynch is it's always very sudden, like a sudden, what I mean by that, as sudden as like being hit by a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it has that kind of weight to it when you get into it at different aspects, and none of this takes any away from anything of the main. I do want to see that vampire movie with him too, for what it's worth. But why does this thing anyway? Yeah, well, I'm screwing around with this thing. Yeah, trying to pull up, trying to not have it open things. But Laura Dern is in this. William Dafoe, like you were saying. Not surprisingly, there's a lot of things you can quote from this movie, which we were just kind of talking about, and you heard at the intro there. That was a very weird quote, very odd thing to say, and that is what David Lynch's movies sometimes are. They are an odd thing to see, and some in the greatest way, in the most positive way, and some in a very much like in your you're going to get something from it for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, and that line was provided by we had AI Ethan say it, but Jack Nance, the late great Jack Nance in the said it in the movie. His character was 00 Spool, and he had a very small scene in it. He's been in everything that David Lynch did up until the point where he passed away. But he's famously in Twin Peaks. He finds Laura Palmer's body on the beach, there on the washed up shore,
Right.
in the opening scene of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, very iconic the way that was shot too. Just like you can see echoes of it in this. Not, I would say, not as great quality sometimes, but for the most part, you get the goodness of the shot. The scenery. You know where you're at. You know what's going on, and I love that about Lynch, like where he incorporates the environment.
Yeah, and there was a quote by the editor of this movie, Dwayne Dunham, who also edited and directed a lot of the Twin Peaks episodes. He said that David Lynch says to never do anything halfway because it falls through the cracks. And that's David Lynch is able to kind of verbalize in an interesting way, but you understand exactly what he means. And that's how he directed this movie. There was a quote from, I believe Lord Dern, and I think Nicolas Cage said, he would use kind of keywords to direct, like he'll say more red, and they knew what he meant, or more Elvis, or which is a little bit more specific, but
more E.
But yeah, exactly. So he's he's very open to pulling in things from the actor as well. They feel like they're collaborating with him, because that snake skin jacket that Nicolas Cage has in it is his own personal jacket. And he asked David if he could, because he bought it like a year ago, and a year before this movie, and he asked David if he could work the jacket into the movie, and David's like, "Yeah, we could do that."
That's
it
awesome.
Could be so he went in and wrote some lines in the dialogue for that. Whereas, what was it, his personal style and a symbol of his freedom.
It was it's a symbol of his individuality and his belief that he has personal freedom, or believe in his personal freedom, and that is an expression. Basically, that's an expression of who he is, which was really rad when he did. I also saw some things, and of course, this is kind of a little bit of an internet thing. Like, it's kind of a little bit more on the backside, but I did see, and I don't know how the hell I got down a rabbit hole, but I got to the. We've talked about it offline. We'll me and Thomas will chit chat offline about this and that. And there's an internet thing there that I recognized. Had I not been baptized in the glory that is the internet. Are you frozen?
No, I think I'm kind of.
All right. Well, that's fine. If it comes back, it comes back. That's great. But I was going to say is Nar is in this, which is like a band that's like kind of very regional down to Texas, and played throughout the United States. But they're very kind of cartoonish, over the top versions of like rock and roll. I hesitate to say metal, but you know what I'm talking about. In the band, like when they're playing, you can see one of them clearly. You can see the shirt, and it has it talks about it, but it just adds to the it just adds to the bizarre cred. That's a cool thing here. Like, it's a good currency that they're exchanging. So like, there's so many obscure little references and things that normal people would not understand anything about, unless you kind of catch it. And then that's kind of the fun, because you recognize that and you're like, oh, I get it. And then you're like, huh, I wonder how that's tied in with, the weirdness that is David Lynch.
Definitely the music is a definite character in it. And obviously, Nicolas Cage brings in his obsession with Elvis into it as well. But yeah, a lot of the music I was getting into at that time, like Chris Isaak, he has several of Chris Isaak songs in here, and I love his stuff. And that metal band that performs in one of the opening scenes, Power Mad. They were a metal band that I just got into. I saw them on Headbangers Ball, and then I found it in this movie, and it was like, wow, it's like David Lynch is reading my mind,
Right. Synergy.
This cool stuff.
That's awesome.
Fun fact, I got to meet Chris Isaak And there's I recently found the
You
picture.
did.
I threw it up on Facebook.
Yeah, it's funny how these things kind of unravel as we,
Mhm.
go through them. But yeah, there is no shortage of it's a David Lynch movie. That's the best way I
Mhm.
can say it. Some people take it or leave it. Some people love it. Like when it's the Twin Peaks and when it strikes, it's a something to behold. Who doesn't
Yeah.
forget Twin Peaks? I mean, come on,
Yeah, and I every David Lynch movie I can see in the theater, I do. I saw this one in the theater, and I think a lot of people, it was advertised as the director of Twin Peaks, a co-creator of Twin Peaks. So a lot of people went into it, I guess, hoping for a Twin Peaks like show, but it's definitely not.
No,
It has its own story to tell, and
nothing like
I
Twin Peaks.
remember, right. My younger sister and I were huge Twin Peaks fans, and we understood what we were getting into in a David
Right.
Lynch movie. We both enjoyed it, but the two ladies behind us during the whole movie were complaining and freaking out as to what this movie was. I don't understand why they didn't get up and leave, but but yeah,
Right.
it was very interesting. We had two
That's
different
funny.
movies. We had the movie in front of us and the movie that was going on behind us as they reacted to this movie, and they were obviously the wrong audience for this.
Yeah,
Uh,
this was a this is like a soap opera that is it's a different kind of animal than a normal soap opera, but it's weird is a great way to put it. Eccentric too. But
yeah,
I'm just pulling my
yeah.
notes up here. Like,
I was reading through IMDb, and Marilyn Manson says it's his favorite love story. So that kind of explains it a little bit.
I would absolutely take I would take him at face value for that. I would not doubt that. Yeah,
um,
I was gonna say the it was and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was based on a novel of the same name by Barry Gifford, I believe, which I have no clue. I've never read that, but but that I
yes,
was
yeah, I did read the book. I didn't read it before the movie, but I found out after watching the movie that it was based on a book. I was like, well, I got to read the book and see how it compares to the movie, because
right,
it couldn't be as crazy as the movie, could it? I read it, and it's actually, he wrote several novels with Sailor and Lula. So if you do want more of Sailor and Lula, he's written 8 books with these characters. So and within that world, and it doesn't go as far as the movie, but the center of it, the Sailor and Lula characters are very much at the core of the books and the core of the movie, and that those are translated very well into the movie. David Lynch is very faithful to them, and there's something a little off center, a little bit weird about Barry Gifford's world and the way he writes.
right,
So yeah, it complements them very well. The books are very short. A lot of them under 200 pages. So I think I've read 6 of the 8 books. I haven't read the last 2 that came out the past decade or so. I do want to read those, but in a big omnibus with all of the books, it's a little under 800 pages. So that just kind of tells you
oh,
they're not super long books.
right, right. Yeah, no, I mean that's still nothing to sneeze at though, for sure.
No,
800
no,
pages for sure.
and yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, a book be as powerful being under 200 pages as if it was 1,000 pages. So yeah, it really doesn't matter. But yeah, Barry Gifford. There's sort of a camaraderie between him and Lynch in that they went on to do. I always forget about this. I believe the show is called Hotel Rooms. It was going to be an anthology series on, I
Okay.
believe it was HBO, but they only produced 3 episodes, and I believe David and Barry wrote 2 of the episodes, and
Right.
David directed 2 of them. and then they went on to co-write Lost Highway. So
Okay.
so yeah, there was, and they haven't worked
I was
together since, but
I was
yeah,
wondering
they're.
about Lost
Hmm.
Highway. I was wondering about that too.
Hmm.
Very
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Hopefully we could do that here eventually on the show.
That would be great. I think that
Hmm.
we can. I think that's a no brainer that we can slip in at any point that we want to. To be
Hmm.
honest, because David Lynch is well. I mean, good lord, we took a while and we talked about Chris Nolan's movies and even Villeneuve's as well. Among other, I'm sure
Hmm.
we're just starting with this. There's so many. I mean, there's so many more out there than we can probably make shows on or
Yeah,
do
which
it
is.
justice to. But yeah, Twin Peaks
Right.
is on around the same time, and you
Hmm.
can see it's a different weird, and I think it's a different weird that Nick. I think his way of interfacing with it is interesting and entertaining, and there is like they don't shy away from anything in this. And
Hmm.
what I was going to say, I should have said at the top of the show, but not for kids. Not for kids, for sure. Just
Absolutely not.
yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
a.
definitely this is old school HBO.
Yeah.
Not for
Yeah.
young eyes.
Yeah,
Fair
and
warning.
but right, there's some sex scenes, a lot of sex scenes. But
Right.
they, while watching the movie, it doesn't seem exploitative in the sense that it's almost like you're kind of spying in on a personal moment between these two characters as opposed to it being thrown in just to grab some eyes, to be titillating. It's there's a purpose to it.
It
Mhm,
goes with the atmosphere of the world, and their
mhm,
world is crime, sex, not so much drugs, but it kind of implied, I
yeah,
guess, in certain ways. But
yeah,
it is racy for a reason because that is that world that you're seeing.
mhm,
There, I don't
yeah,
think this would not be the same movie if you had cut those. I think that if you
right.
wouldn't had shown those, I think that people would have taken it a lot more like satirical.
Well, it also, it just shows you the level of passion that those two characters have. It's a road movie, but it's also a love story. At the heart of it,
It is.
it's a love story, and it's that at the start of it, Sailor, Nicolas Cage's character, goes away to prison, and he comes back out of prison. Lula's mom doesn't want them back together, and so they run off together, and it's sort of like a Romeo and Juliet story of star-crossed lovers. And that first hour or so of the movie is just the joy of them being back together,
Right.
and that the whole passion and that endless, lust for each other. And then at one point, they go to a new location about probably a little bit over halfway through the movie, where things kind of start turning dark, and then that part of it kind of shuts off, and there's not any more lovemaking. It's just
Yeah.
it's sort of like the deterioration of the relationship, and yeah, there's a purpose and a progression of it. And also another one thing I would want, there's a theme of Wizard of Oz throughout the movie,
That's
and
true.
even
Yeah.
even during their lovemaking, they came up with a way to color each of those scenes to
Huh.
where it was the color of the rainbow. So each of the lovemaking scenes a different color.
That is interesting. I did not that you see
Hmm.
that. I remember that. I mean, I don't
Hmm.
remember everything, but like I remember it was everyone was very unique. Like when they did it, like that was that.
Hmm.
Very interesting. Well, that just goes to show that David Lynch communicates to you in different layers. And what I was saying before
Hmm.
about like a soap opera, a very weird soap opera, but like one that you take
Hmm.
seriously, for to a certain degree. It's it definitely is out there. Like when you see some characters and you just see how their features are really enhanced, whether it's Nick's or Laura Dern's or William Dafoe. Like everyone has their part that they bring to this Yeah, and there is a lot. And then the other thing you learn too is that violence is very much intimately interwoven throughout this. Both of these, everyone around this, there's like a central kind of issue that it kind of centralizes around. And what you want to talk about if you had to marry into this family, you would talk about a crazy mother-in-law, like all the jokes for it, but like are even worse. Like this would be
Yeah.
one of those typical families, like where the mother-in-law is just like, holy crap.
and yeah, the whole story is kind of larger than life. And if you think about it, this came out in 1990. During that time, there was a lot of daytime television like Oprah and Jerry Springer
Oh
and
yeah,
all of that stuff.
Phil
And
Donahue
yeah,
and yep, not Dr. Phil. He
and
wasn't around yet, but yeah.
no, not yet, but yeah. So we had that. Every day we were watching these crazy trailer park families doing these crazy things, and this is sort of taking that and elevating it to art. And David Lynch has always commented on how people say how he films dreams, and he has this vision and everything, which is all true.
Right.
But he's a funny man. His dialogue and timing is perfect for the comedy. He knows what's funny, and this whole movie is almost a black comedy. But it kind of gets elevated a little bit higher than that for me. But yeah, there's a lot of funny stuff in this movie. I mean, who doesn't go away from this movie not remembering Jingle Bell? Crispin Glover's cameo in this movie.
For sure. Yeah, it's just such a and they wall break too a lot, inadvertently, but in a way, like the character will be like, kind of that's what it was reminding me of. Yeah, there's just a lot of and I gotta be careful here with the things.
The pictures, yeah.
I don't think this will be too bad because it's more whatever, but it is art, so it's not. But yeah, there's so many bizarre things, and I think they nailed the timeline down too. Like they have this classic Corvette. They're in the Corvette. Yeah, that portends like that right there. That's the turning point, kickoff.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah,
big tuna, whatever. I think big tuna, Texas, and none of these are spoilers. These are all like little tidbits.
Right.
Yeah, he has his own very unique way of communicating on screen too. Because Quentin Tarantino does that too in his own way. He uses different ways to communicate to you, to reach you, to emphasize certain points. And Lynch does too, but in his own way, obviously, like in his own Lynch-like way. That's original to him, and that's another thing that's unique about Quentin too, is he's also original. Like he has his own unique way of doing it. So and certain same thing's true for Ridley Scott and Chris Nolan. All the great directors who have that always amaze me at their ability to take what's in their mind's eye and then take it and then put it in a way that you or I can understand it. And then obviously take away our own own 2 cents from it, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, and the way Quentin will compose the scene is beautiful, and he knows how to compose the scene, and David Lynch does too. And David Lynch started life he's a carpenter, but he's also a painter. So every scene he kind of paints. Each scene is composed, and in that particular scene, they got on the set, and David did not like the lamp in that scene. So he took that lamp and then constructed his own lamp out of it. So that lamp right there is his own lamp that he's created. He spent half the day to make that lamp, and that's just him. A scene, a lamp, probably another director would is like, okay, whatever. But he actually took the time, and he does that. Like there's a sign for the iguana hotels that they stay at, or motels, and he spent half the day making the sign for the hotel. So he's
Right.
very hands on, and he'll stop half the day just if something's not working for him, he'll do that. Like I think another set, he didn't like the door, so he cut out the door and and carpeted in something else that he liked better. So
Yeah,
yeah, he's
he also unflinchingly touches on things, like, just as a matter of fact, like, as the conversation is progressing, there are interspersed cuts of back, flashbacks or whatever, or just kind of
oh, you
interspersed
might
throughout
want
the
to
movie.
bring down
What's that?
your mic.
Oh,
Your
oh
mic.
yeah, oh yeah. So you can hear me. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, the audience can hear me, but you can't hear me with the chat thing. But anyway,
Oh, okay,
yeah, no,
okay.
no, yeah. So thank you. I should have remembered. But yeah, like when they come down, they're just very interesting, um,
Uh-huh.
on that side of it. But yeah. Oh, the what I was saying was the flashbacks. Like, as they're doing conversations and whatnot, they're interspersed
Mhm.
throughout the movie to kind of build understanding for you watching. And
Mhm.
there's some things that, like, this is not for the. It's not really gory or bloody or whatever, but it definitely is heavy on the dialogue. Like, if you are not a fan of dialogue, then, well, I don't know. If depending upon how it is, like, you just have to. It's how they have very good storylines, and because you literally, they're pretty much just two simple people, kind of, in
Mhm.
their own. Well, they're definitely their own two people, that's for sure. That's a better way to put it. But they interact, very straightforward and directly, and they speak their mind. For the most part, they speak their mind, and you're there every step of the way, and it's not gaudy or kitschy or anything like that. It works. This is like
Mhm.
one, like, where it's probably going to grow on you over time,
Mhm.
and probably depending upon how many more time you probably need to balance this out with another David Lynch movie, just to kind of get a barometer, and then when you adjust to that, then you probably have a little bit more enjoyment for it. But is it the best
Right.
David Lynch movie ever? No, I would not say that. But you know, but I mean, how bad that's not. It's still saying it's really good, for lack of
Mhm.
anything else. If you are into that kind of way of telling a story, anyway, and I am, and I think a lot of people are too. But yeah, so
Right.
this, for whatever reason, I just have in my notes that it cost about 10 million to make, and it made about 14.6 million, something like that. So it made its
Mhm.
money back, but I don't. What did the critics say back then about it? Since you were actually you were actually alive and living it when you saw it, I'm sure you came
Yeah.
across something.
Yeah, I think it was mixed. I think with David Lynch stuff, everybody back then, at least, people still were trying to come to terms with his vision, because like you said, he didn't compromise. So yeah, they
No.
were sort of like a mixed bag. I think Peter Travers from Rolling Stones always liked his stuff, and I forget what Roger Ebert and Siskel said. One or the other probably liked it better than the other.
Right.
But yeah, no, with
Little
this movie,
trinket.
and yeah,
and
with
that and
the
that's a mermaid for the
uh,
the folks. So it's relax.
right, yeah, and to kind of double back to your point about the Sailor and Lula, they're kind of like even though they're not, but they're sort of like the innocence. They're like the kind of innocent uh creatures that
Well, they
the
represent love for sure.
yeah.
And love itself can be pure. The pureness
Mhm.
of their love can absolutely be applied to that
Right.
for sure. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they're both damaged and flawed people for sure. Um,
But both of them have a pure of heart.
they
Both
do.
of them want to do right for each other, and all
Right.
the darkness and twisted world is trying to corrupt them and pull them apart.
Yeah, I
So it's sort of like their love is in this big tempest, and
that
they're holding on to each other.
that reminds me too, because I remember Nicolas Cage saying he had a line. He said something like, where they're in bed. There's a lot of bed talk, pillow talk, that these two do. Like, that's like their forte. Of course, they're on the lam, so of course they're gonna, have that. But he said something like where it was a good way through the movie, and he's basically made a vow of like, I don't want to like he gets out of jail and he goes, I don't want to do something for, for no good reason, basically like that was kind of like his way of like kind of squaring up some kind of a morality around things, like where that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be the hero in somebody's story per se, but it means that he's going to try to do right by those around him that he loves, and he's true to, and he's very much true to Lula, and she is true to him, and it is pure, for sure, no matter what.
Yeah,
like
yeah, and
flawed
and
as it may be, or these two people are very flawed, and they're yeah.
yeah. And of the two, she's the brains of the outfit. She's definitely got a little bit more in the upstairs. He follows her lead through the most part, and then when he steps out on his own, that's when he sometimes makes mistakes.
He and he acknowledges it throughout the movie too. Like there's a famous scene of the very one part of it where he's like, thank you, gentlemen. You taught me a very life lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he goes back. So very interesting too. It almost begs like, well, I don't know. I saw there might be a TV show. I don't really know anything about that, but it would be, it makes you interested in their story. Like, what happens next? Like what happened to the soap opera, because that's how a soap opera works, though. It sucks you in. That is that's how it works.
And again, there are the additional books about Lula and sailors. So if you want to read their further adventures, you can. I did watch. I did pick up the Blu-ray Wild at Heart, which is actually pretty good. Now David Lynch doesn't do commentary, so you're not going to have a commentary on here, but the cool thing about this is it has a half-hour interview with Barry Gifford, and it also has I think an hour and 15 minutes of deleted scenes. Now the quality of those scenes are pretty low. It looks like they were taken off of a VHS, so the picture quality and sound quality is not really there. But yeah, if you wanted to have a little bit more Sailor and Lula, there is that on here, which is very interesting. And but yeah, the half-hour interview with Barry Gifford is very interesting if you want to kind of have his take on things. And he said that he came up with the characters. He was staying somewhere, and I think it was writing about some fishing contest or something, or something for some magazine. And he woke up and heard voices, and it wasn't coming from the other hotel room. It was from within his head, and these
That's
two
funny.
characters were having a conversation, and he was compelled to write that conversation down, and it turned out it became Lula and Sailor. So they, he said, obviously I'd been thinking subconsciously about these characters, and they finally came to the forefront. So they kind of forced their way into his world, and became real, and then they became the movie characters. But yeah, he's very happy with the movie. Obviously, they he said some people will come up to me as like, did you see what David Lynch did to your book? And he goes, no, the book's fine. It's right over there on the shelf. But yeah, David just did his interpretation of it. And he said that David Lynch said that it was very important for him to see the movie. And he said, Barry, I want you to watch this movie and after seeing it, give me one word to describe it. One word. And Barry watched it, and he came back and said, David, can I give you 2 words? And he goes, yes, you can give me 2 words. And he goes, not boring.
Yeah, I wanted to go touch on your point about quality. I didn't when I watched it, like I didn't see it in the best quality, and I think that if you were to see it in a much better quality, to actually see the fullness of it, I think that it would only help help
Mm-hmm.
help it along. Let's put it that way. I was very disappointed at the cuts that I saw for the quality. Like usually I'm used to a certain kind of level of even ambient quality is better than
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like what was served up with this. And I guess maybe it just hasn't hit that point like where it's old enough to get that kind of TLC that that it needs. But yeah, that's what I would say on that. But it's still, you're right. Like with those characters and the interaction and everything around it, it keeps you watching. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and for those that don't know, Laura Dern, her mother's Diane Ladd, who plays her mother in this movie.
Hmm.
So there's that extra level of authenticity there, and yeah, and David said he really wanted them to play a mother and daughter in this movie together, and
They do.
and Diane they work quite well, even though they're sort of that dysfunction. And Diane's Ladd's character, the mother, um, she's kind of sort of like the evil witch of the West, but she in the movie, but you understand her motivations in this. It's not she's kind of trying to live her life through her daughter, kind of recapture, I guess, what she lost, and she's holding on to her daughter and wants to cultivate her into the
Even
person that she wants her to be.
yeah, even the mother, even the mother, Donna, or Diane, excuse me, Diane Ladd. Even her
Mm,
character is human.
yeah.
Like so, at first you see this just disgusting, nasty, insert whatever pejoratives you want, um, you know,
Hmm.
grotesque thing that is a mother, and why can't she, her intentions are very clear, but they're very much human driven, because you see her act very decisively one day, and you essentially see her lose her mind. You
Hmm.
see a nervous breakdown for like a prolonged period of time, and then you kind of see her come up from air and like kind of realize, and just desperately cling for like whatever things are told to
Hmm.
her, for her to kind
Hmm.
of keep driving on. It's very
Hmm.
it's sad, disturbing, and and you can't stop watching. Yeah, all the same.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way.
yeah, yeah. And that the picture in that scene, where she starts putting her makeup or her lipstick on, her red lipstick, and then she kind of crosses it against her wrist like she's slitting her wrist, and then she puts it all over her face. Diane Ladd said her kind of uh, the reasoning behind or motivation of that scene was, at the time during the late 80s, early 90s, there was all those beauty commercials where you just had to put that red lipstick on and you were beautiful,
Right.
before and after, you're this beautiful. And so her thought was, this character's like puts the lipstick on, but if that makes her beautiful, maybe putting on her whole face, that'll make her beautiful. And and just kind of transitioning from that to realizing how ugly she is in that moment. It's very, even if you don't know that kind of motivation in that scene, you
Right.
do get the sense of uneasiness within
Distress.
her, and that yeah, like you said, this
Great,
stress,
great distress. Yeah.
hmm there's a lot of exposition in this movie, a lot more than any other David Lynch movie I could think of.
It's very
Where
heavy with that. That's why I say
Mhm.
it's the
Yeah,
dialogue is very important to this movie to be what it
yeah,
is. And
right,
without it, it would not be the same movie.
yeah,
Especially with who is delivering the lines too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I guess the one that has the most exposition would be Dune, but yeah, that's a whole different creature in and of itself, which we did do a
true.
show on. So if you want to go back and watch that one
We'll
where we
have it
compare the
in the show
yeah.
notes.
But yeah, in this one, yeah, there was a lot of backstory, and then Lula kind of explaining her past and kind of looking back, and it kind of develops the characters in different ways.
Right.
Um, it's also when I was watching it this time, my I kind of realized that I it's almost like part of a trilogy. I would say that Blue Velvet, it's sort of like David Lynch's examination of America. You have Blue Velvet that came out before this, where it's sort of his exploration of the Midwest,
Right.
and then this movie is sort of like the exploration of all of the South. You know, you go from North Carolina to New Orleans to Texas, and you have this whole swath of what the South is. And David Lynch is from the from Washington, so his sort of his idea of the South is kind of skewed, but it does ring true
It
throughout
works.
that.
It works.
Yeah, it rings true. And then obviously we love trilogies. So my third movie I would probably say is Mulholland Drive, which is his sort of exploration of California or Hollywood.
Hmm.
So that's sort of my loose
Hmm.
trilogy, so to speak. If you have any comments or disagreements, you could throw that in the comments down below. I haven't fleshed it out in like an article or anything, but that's kind of maybe an idea that I could float around in my head a little bit more to kind of flesh it out a little bit more. But yeah, those are kind of clear places. All of his other movies are sort of dealing with kind of a concept, but those are sort of like very place specific, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
The just like Angel Heart, where the Alan Parker, where he used the locations as its own thing, like Brooklyn, and New Orleans too.
yes, yep.
But with that, they're their own way, and they're very gritty and they're very real. And this is representing the down and outs, for sure. And you get that sense
Mhm.
throughout this entire thing of like, these are the underdogs, so to speak. They're not really, but they're the down and outs, I guess would be a better way to put it. Because and you see that reflected in these locations too, like where the New Orleans
Mhm.
is his own character in any movie. I bet you can't. Just like in True Detective, the same thing. You know, I mean, this is the way it is. Like with that
Yeah.
kind of that vision, with the location is just as important as the characters and the exposition and
Yeah.
everything else. But yeah,
Yeah,
this,
each part plays its own role. Like,
yeah,
yeah, like you said, the characters, even if they're only on the screen for a few minutes, each one of them is memorable. I mean, Bobby Peru, Willem Dafoe's Bobby Peru, is in it very little, but he kind of puts his own kind of shadow over the whole movie.
oh, he's huge in it.
Same
Yeah.
same with Harry Dean Stanton, and even on down to the even minor characters. There's a scene that I always think about with when Diane Ladd's in the hotel lobby in New Orleans, and she has these three kind of befuddled old men kind of surrounding her,
Right.
and it's kind of stagnating. And she wants to find the answers of things, but these old men are kind of indifferent to what she's or is unable to help her in her desires to get answers, and that whole frustration is very artistically kind of drawn out in that scene with the old gentleman that can barely walk and
Oh
the
yeah.
other man with the walker.
Right. Yeah, like that. It's almost like you know what it kind of reminded me of? It
Mhm.
kind of reminded me of like the waiting room of a funeral home. That's
Oh
what it
yeah.
kind of
Uh-huh.
reminded me of, like a mausoleum, or like she was essentially talking to the Undertaker. That's
Mhm.
kind of the impression that I got. And then here you see Satan kind of slip in, so to speak,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
in kind of like, and then we see the rest of the place. I bet there's a little bit of Shakespeare there, for sure. That are, or from the greats that are, that's
Mhm.
triggering a memory in my head. But the only solid hard criticism, negative maybe, and this is my own opinion. I think that it could have been 10 minutes shorter, but that's just that's my personal thing on it. I think that maybe that would be a fair shake, from my point of view. But you know what though? Like, I mean, you don't really come out missing. Like, you feel like you're missing 10 more minutes or like whatever. It does kind of hang a little long in some things, like where I think it should have moved along. But then again, at the same time, he uses that pause. He uses the pause very well, and he uses the suspense building to draw you in. Like it is like every part and piece of this is like a jigsaw puzzle of weird, and you're kind of hungry a little bit to like you're still interested. Like, well, what happens next? You kind of like, what the hell could possibly happen next? It's like, and then this arcane situation, but.
Yeah, and they did do test screenings for this movie, and I think there's a quote of David saying the first test screening they did, 80 people walked out, and then the next one, 100 people walked out. So again, this movie you kind of have to meet it halfway. It's not gonna hold your hand. If you go in just because it's a Nicolas Cage movie or it has Laura Dern in it because you like her from Jurassic Park, this isn't good. Probably you're probably going to be kind of thrown off center, and you're either going to come up to meet the movie, or you're going to stay off center until you turn it off, because this movie, it's again, his movies are sort of dreamlike, and they have their own kind of rhythm and their own pace, and you have to be open to that. It's not your like I said, he doesn't do anything halfway. It's definitely its own creature, and when you say that it probably could be a 10 minutes shorter, I was like, okay, well, you could probably cut out the Jingle Dell scene, but I wouldn't want to lose that.
Well,
you could cut out probably the trailer park scene with the overweight naked ladies jiggling around, but
it's only a flash, right? I think that maybe if you cut the dialogue, maybe a sentence short, in a few of the scenes, I think that's how you would get to it. I don't think you would want to cut out some of the. Of course, I am not an editor, and I'm way over my head. But to bring up a point too about Laura Dern in Jurassic Park, Sam Neill was in that movie that we covered quite a while ago. That I loved a lot. It was great too.
Possession. Yep.
Yeah, Possession. Exactly. Yep. I love that. But so anyway, kind of a weird Jurassic Park. I completely forgot when you said. That's why I had to like. I forgot she was in Jurassic Park. Holy crap!
Right.
That's awesome. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's this kind of reminded me a little bit of not all the way, but it and its own take too on a situation. But Natural Born Killers is one that comes to mind. And this kind of thing that we see here that happens.
Yeah. There's almost a timelessness to it, sort of like the classic cars and the obsession with Elvis, but it's also very much into the 80s, early 90s movie. You have the big hair of Lula, obviously, permed up big hair of the 80s. You had the metal of the 80s. You had,
but you also acid washed, rock band feel to it a little bit for the style at least.
Yeah, but you also had sort of the start of the 90s, sort of that kind of style as well. So yeah, it's a very much a time capsule at the same time being kind of timeless in itself. So kind of weird dichotomy, but David Lynch is able to kind of capture that. A little bit of old, a little bit of the new, and but it all kind of gels together in this perfect mix. But yeah, and then I was also going to say, it
is a good love. You know what? It is a good love story. It really is. I mean, it is in its own right. Okay. So this isn't a rom-com. You're not gonna ain't quite fair cut like that. It's very much a soap opera. With a little bit of talk show pizzazz thrown into it, like ridiculousness. Yeah, it's like Twin Peaks without all the super heavy supernatural, and it's kind of divorced from that a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, and I think that I guess another criticism I would have would be like, I kind of miss a little bit of something more. You kind of get a little bit of hints of that with a crystal ball thing, but not really too much. I mean, I guess it's enough to like fill in the paint by numbers. You bring your own thing, and that's kind of the way this is. He invites you in. He invites you in to watch it, partake it, and be part of it too.
Yeah,
to a
yeah.
degree.
You pull out of it what you want. He gives you all the tools there, all of the emotions, all
Right.
of everything. But how you want to interpret the scene is totally up to you. Like I said, this is a more narrative driven movie as opposed to say Eraserhead, which is totally you're gonna have to figure it
Different.
out on your own
Right.
kind of movie.
Yep. That's very
Whereas
true.
this one kind of tells kind of a basic story, but doesn't. It also has all this other stuff in it that you kind of have to interpret. There is a that pivotal scene where things kind of start taking a dark scene. They come upon a car crash, and Sherilyn Fenn, who's from the Twin Peaks show, she's one of the people in it, and she has a head injury, and David Lynch said that he always kind of saw Sherilyn Fenn as sort of a porcelain doll,
Hmm.
and he wondered what would happen if that porcelain doll broke,
Right.
and so that kind of inspired the scene. That was specific to this movie. It's not in the book, but it's a perfect scene to kind of transition things on a darker path towards the end of the movie. And yeah, that it just kind of plays out perfectly.
Yeah, and I also think too that crash scene also plays to the humanity that you see. Like you can't hate these people all 100%. I mean, you can like a couple of the Satan guy that I referred to. You can a little
Uh-huh.
bit like that's kind of easy, but then again, he's not the main guy at all. He's just kind of like a bit character that plays his part. And but you see how you can see that they're underneath they try to be good people. I guess, or their natural instinct isn't to be malicious at all. And I'm speaking specifically about Sailor and Lulu, like
Mhm.
because they say we got to get her, we got to help her, they stop and help her. If it was anything
Mhm.
else, they would have, if it was like a Tarantino movie, they probably would have had two bullets in their head or whatever, and they would have rolled on or whatever.
Mhm.
I don't know, I'm making that up, but
Mhm.
it would be a completely different take. But it underscores their humanity and how we're all kind of lost little. We're so small on this big vast
Mhm.
thing, and all you really have is kind of like what Nicolas Cage's character says,
Mhm.
which is your own personal belief in your own freedom, like
Mhm.
your own expression and what you want to pick and choose, I guess, which is very
Yeah.
interesting because he does make very poor choices, like when he kind of steps out on
Right.
his own, for sure. You call that a good
Yeah.
point, but you see that they're very like they don't hide anything. Like
Right.
during that car wreck scene, I remember mentally thinking like because they have a very open, candid conversation, and he's like, we got to get out of here for my parole, for they know I'm on parole, or something like
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
it's like he says that to God, to everyone, and
Yeah.
and it's just like you see that in him. That is his character being the most innocent that his character can be. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
And you see that true with Lulu in her own moments, but I think hers is a little bit more.
Yeah.
Her track is a little bit easier to track on because like she is kind of this. She's definitely been a victim for sure, but she
Mhm.
doesn't she doesn't stay in that mode, and
Right.
she
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 doesn't
she
play the victim.
no, she doesn't. She
Mhm.
picks up and moves on. And there's
Mhm.
some gnarly stuff that is
Yeah.
pretty gnarly, heady stuff that they
Happens to her. Yeah.
right, that you learn through the dialogue and through this thing.
Mhm.
Like ones that like I was like kind of like if they show any more of that, I gotta look away or something, But
Mhm.
but it's
Yeah.
but that's what David Lynch does. He takes you to that point of like where you want to look away,
Mhm.
and then you don't because you don't have to
Mhm.
because it's like it's not. It's a very refined way of storytelling that I appreciate. And at
Yeah.
least if you're going to cover the subject material, it's very nice how he
Yeah.
covers and how it's
Yeah.
given to you to take.
Yeah. Because yeah, the fact that he doesn't do anything half-assed. He does it all the way. It kind of puts you off center, and so that it gives you that reality of he could do. What is he going to do? He could do anything because in this world, the sky's the limit, and it becomes a little bit more real to you as opposed to a regular movie where you go, oh well, this movie is a movie; it's not going to go this far. Whereas with David, there are no rails. There are those guidelines. He could go wherever it wants to.
I definitely will be reading some of the books for sure. Because I want to. I want to not this. I won't read this book. But I'll probably read the next one either after it or before it, and I'll just kind of jump in and start swimming and see how that feels, because it's very interesting, very intriguing too. And again, this is a movie that's going to grow on you, for sure.
And I love the scene that you're showing on the screen because it's kind of a culmination. It's kind of encapsulates the movie because they're driving and they're listening to all this horrible stuff on the radio about the news of the world, and she goes, she says pull over, and she goes, find me something good on that radio now, and then they found their metal song that they love, and they start just dancing around, and they like I said, they're finding their own world within the crazy world, and then that just, and also it's a perfect shot. They got the. This isn't CGI. This is before CGI. They captured that what they call the magic hour in filmmaking, where the sun's just perfect, and it's sort of like that crane shot where it comes up, and they're in that field just dancing around, kicking around to that metal song, and then it kind of bleeds into this kind of beautiful orchestral music from Angelo Badalamenti, and it just is just kind of perfect.
Yeah, which is why I feel shortchanged on the quality that I saw. It makes you wish that there were higher. For all the things that are amazing and wonderful in the world, probably the biggest gripe that probably people have is the fact that you can't if you want to make it high quality, like 4K, whatever. It didn't have to be 4K. It's just like really, really good quality. Something obviously 4K would be great if that's possible, but like it just begs for it. It begs for it, and like that's one thing I would complain about in modern day thing is like, I mean, it's still good. It just I think that it would have enhanced it for me a little bit more to have a better quality of the thing. But so I'll probably put this on the list to like look out for. And I'll probably
it's definitely worth
snag sometime
better quality
absolutely
version of it. And I guess we'd be remiss to not mention there's a scene late in the movie between Bobby Peru and Lula, William Dafoe and Laura Dern, that's very intense. It starts off kind of there's this sinister layer throughout the whole scene, but it starts off funny. Bobby Peru's making a joke, and he's taking a piss, but he kind of comes on to her, and it becomes kind of a rape scene, and then it abruptly ends in sort of a joke again. And to orchestrate that whole scene, it gets very uncomfortable. And like you said, you get to the point where you kind of want to look away.
You really do. I mean, I do.
You want it to stop.
Yeah, my sensibilities are such for certain things, and for the most part, I can watch some gnarly stuff. But like, there are other things like where it's like, no, 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 we're not doing this. And then you're like, okay, it's over. All right, it's not that bad. But that's me. That's me. That's not Lynch. I'm sure there are people that are like, what are you talking about? The way he's so squeamish, but. It is what it is. But yeah, and you do, you right on the head, right? I mean, this is just part and parcel for it. What's on the screen now, if you're an audio listener, is the Glinda the Good Witch from
Wizard of Oz, played by Cheryl Lee, Laura Palmer.
From
Twin Peaks.
Laura Palmer is definitely a porcelain doll, for sure. And that's so funny. Laura Palmer. I'll never forget that. I mean, God, I can remember where I was when I watched Twin Peaks, when I was introduced to it. I was very late in life. I may or may not have lived under a rock a little bit when I was younger, but all the same, we all grow up, right? So yeah, there's you feel the scene like in this, like this is toward the end of the scene for this particular thing for this scene, and she's just like angrily, just sucking down more numbing agent because her life is what it is, and all that. And yeah, we'll be careful with that. But yeah, well, this is part and parcel. Racy, like, but not for whatever. Yeah, and William Dafoe. Oh my God. God,
he has those fake teeth, and he said, putting those teeth in, you become Bobby Peru. It's just
there are characters that are made to hate. Like you definitely like, or you just have maybe hates another side of it, but you're just like, oh God, greaseball, a-hole, kind of thing. But and then it's just like it is.
Yeah, the Bobby Peru character could, in another movie by another director, another writer, could have come across as a joke.
Right.
And he does at times. He has that jokey element and he's hilarious in certain scenes. But there's this creepy, slimy creepiness to him at all times that kind of pervades his character, that he's not a good guy.
No.
But I think that's partly David Lynch directing, but also William Dafoe wonderfully acting out the character. And to go back to that scene with him and Laura Dern, they had to have a lot of trust between each other to do that scene, to play all of those different emotions. But for David Lynch to kind of choreograph and take them through all those emotions and to make it so real that you want to look away is kind of masterful. And it's a very intense scene, a scene that you don't want to revisit after you see it.
And that's
but it's there for a reason, and it's a pivotal scene in the movie.
Yeah, and I will comment too on that phenomenon. There are a handful of these throughout the movie. There's not too many. There's not too little. It's the right amount to like where you don't get numb to it. Let's put it that way.
Right.
You're still
there's
fresh.
peaks and valleys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was gonna say too. I was getting a trip out of this. Remember back in the '90s, like when you would have gone to see this, you could have rented it, from the grocery store or whatever. And like I'm loving all these little, very, very much their era,
box art.
Yeah.
Box art of it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we're kind of rolling up here, maybe a little bit closer to the end, with things to say. But like,
I did want to talk about the ending a little bit, so some spoiler alerts. But yeah, before we get to that, was there anything else? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any other? Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's go.
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Go ahead. Dive
right.
in. Yeah. Dive in. Yeah. What I was going to say was I'll put that down in the, I'll chapter it out here in a little bit, like once I get it uploaded or whatever, so the folks can know like when there's going to be a spoiler here to enhance the thing. But yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So the next couple of minutes kind of skip out if you don't want to hear the ending. But yeah, so the ending of the book happens when at the end where Lula and Sailor are talking and they part ways. That's how the book ends. So there on out where Sailor walks off and has this conversation with the gentleman on to the end is totally new to the movie. But after his original cut of the movie ended it where it was, and one of the producers of the movie said, David, this needs a happy ending. This movie needs a happy ending. And David agreed with him and said, yeah, this does need a happy ending. And so he went to Barry Gifford, who wrote the book, and said, hey, I'm thinking about making a happy ending. He asked him, does Sailor and Lula get back together? And Barry said, yes, in the next book I have them getting back together. And David said, great, and he hung up on him, and he did the whole ending. And that whole ending section is sort of like almost plays out like sort of a 50s kind of greaser movie, kind of West Side Story kind of thing where, you know, you've got
Like
that
Grease,
huge, yeah, like Grease, like that whole big wide shot of him walking
That's
down,
true.
and it kind of plays off.
I did not
It
see that. Yeah, that's true.
it plays much like a movie within a movie. That, you know, it's sort of like, it plays very much like a movie, almost
Right.
like a dream, and you could almost kind of think of it as, you know, the first part of the movie is sort of like reality, and this is maybe the dream inside of Sailor's
Well,
head, and also the dream inside the viewer, because they want a happy ending at this point.
well, again, it is there are soap opera vibes and DNA in this throughout. That is very much a soap opera kind of feeling. That I
Hmm.
think that would be another way that I would put it.
Yeah.
But that's very true. Yeah, you
Because Sailor does get knocked out, so you could almost see that that's sort of like his unconscious imagination of them getting back together.
right. Yeah, I think he also is kind of like he. It's funny because he steps out on the wrong. If it's kind of like when he makes a decision and he independently does it, it's the wrong one. You know, so to
Right.
speak. And he kind of gets corrected real quick. He listens to the universe pretty quick on that one. That's for sure. Yeah. No, it does pique my curiosity to read more about these two characters in book form, because book form is a whole different ball game, and it would be really cool to see how that turns out. Like,
Oh,
and to be honest with
absolutely.
you, I've been kind of starving for other genres to read for books of late,
Hmm.
because I'm about ready to start here in the winter time. I usually start my big long audiobook kick, like where I'll just catch up on a bunch of stuff.
Hmm.
But most of that stuff you burn through it pretty quick. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
If I'm not
Yeah.
playing Starfield, but all joking aside, another fun thing to do. Like, we're very lucky that we have all these wonderful things to enjoy. But yeah, this is a David Lynch soap opera of weird. I think that would be a good description of it. You know, it definitely fits for sure.
Hmm. I like that box art cover, because
I do too. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
it's very, very beautiful. But then if you kind of squint, you see Bobby Peru almost just about to blow off the top of his head there in the background.
Oh, yep. No, it's all part of the ambiance to the whole thing. And again, it's a Lynch movie through and through. That's for damn sure. But yeah, I guess where would this rate on your in your pantheon of Lynch movies, as far as it goes, if you were to stack them up, or are you able to do that with his movies like that?
I don't normally like rank stuff, but it'd
Right.
probably kind of be mid to mid upper tier.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah,
That makes
yeah.
sense.
And there's we did go over Nicolas Cage's movie Raising Arizona a while back, and this character does have a lot of similarities to
Yep, I was
High.
gonna say that.
There's a line in it about him not having good parental guidance, which is, I think, a line straight from Raising Arizona.
It definitely reminded me, like, just the South. Of course, that was it was the West, but he touches the West a little bit, for like in Texas. But you get that like, again, you get that whiff of it too, like where you can't help but think about that, you know, him playing that and
Yeah,
and that.
and he gets up into trouble in Raising Arizona, where he does put a pantyhose over his head.
That's true.
To rob a liquor store or a convenience store, and they rob a bank in this, and he gets a pantyhose on his head in this as well.
Right.
Which one other thing I'll touch on is, with that pantyhose on your head, you could still tell Bobby Peru's Bobby Peru. You know, there's no masking that.
Right.
So
right.
yeah,
You're not fooling anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say, I see this particular thing has the Canes. It came out. They showed it in May of '90, and then they released it, I think, in August of '90. On my notes, I'm not gonna do the date. I'm not gonna track down the date, but I don't need to be that much of a nerd about it. But yeah, that snakeskin, everything's very iconic for this, and you can't help it. It all, like I said, it's all part of like building a bigger puzzle piece. Like, you'll work on the puzzle a little bit over here and kind of see something, and then you'll jump over there and you'll work on that corner for a little bit, and then you can see it fall into place pretty quickly.
And that character there, that Isabella Rossellini plays, is there's the following book spotlights her in the story, which is called Perdido Durango, and there is a movie based off of Perdido Durango. I haven't seen it yet. I've always wanted to see it. It was always kind of hard to find, but they just recently came out with a 4K of it.
Interesting.
Blu-ray of it. So hopefully I'll get to catch up with that finally. It's not directed by David Lynch, and it doesn't have Isabella Rossellini as a character, but yeah, I've heard mixed things about it. I think it's pretty intense as well. So just FYI out there for those that are interested in more of that characters. There's the book and the movie as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, and I think we're gonna bring us to the top of the show. Anything else that I think did we leave anything else out?
No, I think we're good. We're the first to last on Nerdom. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this. And I'm the Jedi Master, and Mike's the the Jewish one.
Yeah, so freaking Jewish. Yep. Old gamer tag. Go with it. But anyway, yeah, I've been Mike.
And I'm Thomas.
Yeah,
and the world's wild at heart and weird on top.
It is very much, very, very true. Very David Lynch.
Yep.
I wouldn't worry about that, Peanut. By then people, LL probably be driving Buicks to the moon. This has been a The First The Last The Nerdom production by Mike and Tom.